Hello, this is Frank of the 12 Gates, and in today's video we're going to be looking at Syria and more specifically Damascus, and also we'll be looking at the River Euphrates and see if there's any connection between all three of those. The Euphrates is quite a big river. That's the thing we're going to look at first. And there's been a lot of headlines saying that it's been drying up. If it has been drying up, then it would fulfill prophecy that's mentioned in Revelation 16, which I think is the first verse we're going to look at, which is concerning the Euphrates. And let's have a look what we've got. Revelation 16:12, and this is the sixth angel, which says the sixth vial. We're getting near the end of the judgments, so this is quite a way through Revelation. But what does it say? It says, "And the sixth angel poured out his vial upon the great river Euphrates, and the water thereof was dried up, that the way of the kings of the east might be prepared." Now what I'm going to do, I'm just going to skip back to another Bible verse, and that's this one here, which mentions the river Euphrates. It's a very important river, this. And this is going back to Abraham, the covenant that the Lord made with Abraham. And this is Genesis 15:18. Let's have a read of this. "In the same day the Lord made a covenant with Abraham, saying, Unto thy seed have I given this land from the river of Egypt unto the great river, the river Euphrates." If we go back to Revelation 16:12, there's mention here of the kings of the east, isn't there? And I did a video on this, saying that it could be China. It could be China. It could be the kings of the east. It could be anything east of the river Euphrates, isn't it? It could be that. But I think it's China and the other Asian nations in that area. But if we go back to the Euphrates itself, if we go into the headlines for the latest headlines surrounding the Euphrates, we got one here from the Trumpet, and it says, "Turkey dries up the Euphrates, an impending water shortage threatens millions in the Middle East." And this mentions the Syrian Civil War. This came out June the 11th, 2014, and there's been problems ever since then, really. We've got one here. I mean, this is the 20th of July. It says here, "Why Turkish dams could push the region toward new conflict." And this is mentioning South Anatolia, Iran, but also it's going to take in Syria as well. If we go to another headline, "Turkey cuts for Euphrates water levels, drastic decrease." Again, this is middle of June 2017. And then again we got another, this is this year, January the 9th, 2018. "Plunging water levels in Turkish dams, heightening concerns." And confirmed, Turkey using Euphrates River as a weapon versus Syria and Iraq. And Turkey's massive dam building creating problems. And that's the headlines that I'm seeing coming out. Some of those, they're spanning over the last 3 years. The thing is, for that Revelation 16:12, that's getting right near the end of the judgments, isn't it? For that to be fulfilled, some people are saying that the river has dried up, and I've mentioned this before. I did write an article on this, the Euphrates and Damascus, and basically the prophecy for that to be fulfilled, we would be talking, I would say, the whole river drying up completely from Turkey all the way through. Something is going to happen there. I just don't think it's a man-made event. That's just my opinion. But it's nothing to do with dams. That is man creating dams that is creating the fulfillment of prophecy. No, I don't think it's going to be that. I think there could be some sort of maybe extreme weather may turn up in that area, and it doesn't matter how many dams there are and what the dams are doing. It's the river's going to dry up. When you see that, then you know that we're in that Revelation 16:12. A lot of people say that, you know, if you're a Christian, you believe in the rapture, when it's going to happen, we won't be here to witness that anyway. But it's something, you know, it does run through Syria. If we get the map up, if we get the map up, you can see, I mean, there's a number of dams. You've got the Kaban Dam, the Karakaya Dam, the Ataturk, I think that's the biggest one. That's absolutely massive, that thing. Then the Karkamis, then the Tizreen Dam. That is the beginning of the ones that are in Syria. So there's a number there. So if whatever Turkey does upstream, if they decide to just shut the dam down and not let any water through, then obviously south of there you're going to see the Euphrates dry up in Syria and Iraq and part of Iran. But that doesn't necessarily mean that prophecy has been fulfilled, does it? Next we'll go on to Syria itself. Syria is a very crucial, or very crucially located nation. It borders onto Israel, near the Golan Heights, around that area, and Damascus is not a million miles away from Israel and Jerusalem either, and that's where we're seeing all the headlines coming out. We'll be going on to that in a minute. But Syria, location wise, borders onto Turkey, Iraq, and it's a country, when we go back to the previous video that I talked about, we were talking about the Gog and Magog war, and all the nations that are mentioned, they are all one country away from Israel. There's not one country that's mentioned that actually borders on to Israel. Not one. Yeah, but Syria is the one that is right next to it. And I think it's got a crucial role to play because of its geographic location. And that's why we're seeing, if the Gog-Magog war is starting to, we're starting to see the countries that are going to get involved with it are starting to make movements, prophetic movements, to fulfill that war, then basically we're seeing Turkey's making inroads into Syria, isn't it? And Russia seems to be taking an interest as well. And Syria, you know, when you ask yourself, you think, well, why is Russia taking such an interest in the civil war that's going on with Assad and the rebels? Why is he taking interest in that? And there's many articles out there, you can Google it for yourself. But that's another jigsaw piece, isn't it? I mean, if you look at this picture of Putin, you see him shaking hands there with Assad. They're like they're like family, aren't they? But this Putin, he's not stupid, and he is aware of the prophecy that's mentioned in the Bible. He knows he's got a role to play. Same with that Erdogan. And Syria, that's why I think there's that interest in Syria, because the Euphrates runs through it, and also, which is mentioned in prophecy, and also Damascus is mentioned as well, isn't it? That's what I'm saying. If we look at the headlines, if we start, say, moving towards Damascus, I'll come on to the Bible quote that, you know, where Damascus is mentioned. We've got this headline here from the BBC: Syria war, Israel strikes Damascus military complex. This is 7th of February 2018. This is quite recent. Another one, Syrian forces respond to Israeli aggression in Damascus. Yeah, there's something. If we go to the Bible quote where Damascus is mentioned, it's in Isaiah 17. We'll read 1, 2 and 3. The burden of Damascus, behold, Damascus is taken away from being a city, and it shall be a ruinous heap. The cities of Aroer are forsaken, they shall be for flocks which shall lie down, and none shall make them afraid. The fortress also shall cease from Ephraim, and the kingdom from Damascus, and the remnant of Syria. They shall be as the glory of the children of Israel, saith the Lord of hosts. It's the first verse that everybody seems to quote, and I think everybody's aware of this one, isn't it? The burden of Damascus, behold, Damascus is taken away from being a city, and it shall be a ruinous heap. Now, some people are saying that this prophecy was fulfilled in, I think it's around about 730, 732, around about that time. Damascus has been under siege many times. It's one of the oldest cities, I think, in the Middle East. And it's been under attack and been taken over many times, but it's never been a ruinous city. Yes, when people say that the prophecy was fulfilled in 730, around about that time, BC, I'm inclined to disagree, but it could be. It could be right. So we're seeing the recent drone footage, as you saw at the beginning of the video, with the drone going over the suburbs where the rebels are. It's been absolutely bombed, had the living daylights bombed out of it, and it is ruinous. But you can see in the distance the actual central part of Damascus is still there. It's still standing. We need to see the whole city completely demolished and nobody there whatsoever. People are starting to flee now. We're seeing headlines that are saying that people are starting to flee Damascus because the bombing has become even more intense and people are getting worried and they are leaving. So you know, what I'm trying to say is all these things, Damascus, the Euphrates and Syria itself, all those three, I think they're interconnected. And, you know, there's many Bible verses out there. We've got another against thee. And if you go to Revelation 9:14, this is the Euphrates, saying to the sixth angel which had the trumpet, loose the four angels which are bound in the great river Euphrates. If we go to Jeremiah 46:10, for this is the day of the Lord God of hosts, a day of vengeance, that he may avenge him of his adversaries, and the sword shall devour, and it shall be satiate and made drunk with their blood. For the Lord God of hosts hath a sacrifice in the north country by the river. So there's three jigsaw pieces there. There's something we need to keep on. But I mean, the Euphrates itself drying up, that is something that I think it's way down the line. It's a lot further on, but we're starting to see signs of that. With Damascus, we're starting to see the beginnings of it becoming a ruinous city, as mentioned in Isaiah 17:1, the burden of Damascus. And finally, Syria itself, we can see that Turkey is getting sucked in, and also we can see Russia getting sucked in as well, isn't it? And they seem, and Russia is, and Syria is basically getting sucked in, and it's right next door to. But this is the worrying thing when we start seeing these headlines like this one here from Sputnik. I use this Sputnik quite a bit. Get some good headlines from there. It says here, US considering new attack on Syrian government's national intelligence chief says. And this was the 7th of March, just a couple of days ago. A potential decision by Washington to take new military actions against Damascus would mark the second US strike on Syria in less than a year. So you can see what's happening is, I've seen other headlines as well. China have got bases. They're expanding stuff. They've got the South China Sea, as we've seen. They've got bases now in Africa, and Africa is not a million miles away from Israel and Syria. And no mention of anything going on there. But this headline here looks worrying. We got Russia. What I'm trying to say is Syria, the Euphrates and Damascus is something you need to keep an eye on. I would say it's up there with Turkey. You need to keep an eye on developments there. Keep an eye on anything that's going on in the Middle East. But I think that country is key in prophecy. And certainly Damascus, you need to keep an eye on that. If that place gets leveled and there's nobody there, that hasn't happened in its entire history. That place, if it does get completely flattened for whatever reason, then that has fulfilled prophecy, and that is an omen that the Gog and Magog war that I mentioned in the previous video is not that far off. We're getting near it, and we're certainly in those times. You can see the jigsaw pieces are all coming together. But I thought I'd put this video out there because it helps you to, if you're not aware, it helps you to keep your eyes on what is actually going on in the Middle East and the key countries that you need to keep an eye on. And Turkey is one you need to keep an eye on. Russia obviously is not in the Middle East, I know, but they are in the Middle East, and you need to keep an eye on Syria. Not so much the Civil War. I don't think the Civil War itself is prophecy at all, but it's what's going on there. The other countries are getting sucked into it, aren't they? And because they're getting sucked into it, and these are the countries that I mentioned in the Gog and Magog war, then if they are floating around Syria, then basically that is not a million miles away from Jerusalem and Israel, isn't it? So it's something to be aware of, and that's why I put this video out there. A final little thing I want to say, and I may make a video on this, is although we should be keeping an eye on all these developments, and these are signs of getting closer to the arrival of the Lord, or the second coming, isn't it? We need to make sure that we keep our eyes on the Lord. Yeah, that's our first priority, and not get too distracted by other things. Keep your eyes on the Lord first. That's if you're in the faith, and then watch all these other things afterwards. But certainly there's another load of jigsaw pieces for you there. I'll put those out there, and you can see the headlines. And as I always say, keep following me on Twitter for the latest developments. I'm sort of moving away from the extreme weather on there now, and I'm just more focused now on the Middle East, basically, and keeping an eye on all the countries and just seeing what's going on. Well, we're certainly seeing movements and headlines that are getting more and more prophetic by the day. Anyway, this is Frank of the 12 Gates. Peace, love and joy.